world will be on display on the Spokane River shore. The Lilac City's dressing up like a pretty teenage girl, getting ready for the World's Fair, Expo 74.
Oh my gosh, I hope you enjoyed that little ditty because you just heard the official song of the World's Fair in Spokane. So you know that 50 years ago, people all over the world were abuzz about Spokane. That's right, Spokane. So May 4th, 1974 was the kickoff to the International Exposition. With a population of only about 170,000, Spokane was the smallest city ever to hold a World's Fair. Yet, it attracted over 5 million visitors. How did they do it? Well, historian Feliks Banel is here to take a look back and explain it all to us. So, few people thought that little old Spokane could pull off the World's Fair. What had been happening in Spokane decades prior that attracted the attention of those who planned this fair?
Well, in the early days, Spokane and Seattle were very similar. Both cities had big fires back in the 1880s. Both cities kind of bounced back. By the time you get to the 1950s in Spokane, it's this industrial city in the heart of the Inland Empire. But running through town is this beautiful river, but it's surrounded by buildings. It's all cut off by concrete and warehouses. So if you're in downtown Spokane, you can't really tell that there's this wonderful river going through town. The civic leaders thought, let's do something to highlight the city that we know and love. It's very tiny. Let's do something so audacious we'll pull off a World's Fair in little old Spokane.
Wow.
And darned if they didn't do it. They convinced the World Exposition Bureau to certify the fair as an official World's Fair. Philadelphia was in the running to do a fair that year, but they backed out, and little old Spokane went ahead and pulled it off in 1974. So it's the 50th anniversary this year.
You don't say. All right, so the theme, because every expo had a theme, right? Celebrating tomorrow's fresh new environment. They were really ahead of their time.
Yeah, the early 70s, that's when the Department of Ecology is formed. It's when the EPA is created at a federal level, and the Earth Day happens. So it's kind of in the air. But in terms of World's Fairs, Spokane is first. They choose this environmental theme, and a perfect place to do it. There in Spokane, they've got this river going through town that, as part of creating the fair, they pull away all that concrete, they expose these falls. They create a fairgrounds that, unlike probably any other World's Fair in the history of mankind, they embrace the natural setting. You can see how everything's laid out along the river. Most other World's Fair, including here in Seattle, it's just kind of a big acreage. They put a bunch of carnival rides and stuff in.
They did.
This fair really embraced the landscape, which was perfectly fit in with the environmental theme. And every fair since Spokane has been an environmental theme. I mean, they sort of set the tone and kind of everyone's followed their lead for 50 years now. So it's a really very influential fair for a little tiny city like Spokane to attract all those millions of people there.
So the fair opens, the fun begins. President Nixon stops by?
Well, this is 1974, and if you know your history, that's the year that President Nixon resigned. So he comes out to Fairchild Air Force Base to be welcomed by Governor Dan Evans, our great governor, a three-term governor. And he says, Governor Evans at the podium, and he says, the President of the United States. And President Nixon steps up and says, thank you, Governor Evans.
Oh, dear.
Because
I'd say something like that.
The Watergate investigation was underway. The White House had just agreed to turn over all the tapes and ultimately lead to Nixon resigning a few months later. So it's really, and so Nixon kicks off the fair, and then President Ford is the president at the end of the fair. First time you have two different presidents during a single fair.
No, it
it's
happened
crazy.
that fast during the fair?
It happened that fast. Very crazy. Yeah.
Hell.
So you see in this diagram here, look at the beautiful layout there that takes the river is the heart of the thing. It's not just a carnival. It's all these beautiful pavilions, carnival rides, sky rides and stuff like that, but it's all about the centerpiece, the natural beauty of those falls that have been there since time immemorial.
That's so groovy.
That sky ride, I mean, who doesn't love going over the fairgrounds
Who
on a sky
doesn't
ride
love
like
a sky ride? Those are the fun.
And that big pavilion.
Yep.
You know, Seattle got the Space Needle. Seattle got the what's now Climate Pledge Arena and became a big league city with major league sports.
Absolutely.
Spokane didn't get that, but they did get some pretty cool assets and civic infrastructure that made the city much better in the years since. And they're putting a lot of effort into restoring stuff.
Some of that's still there.
Oh, the pavilion's still there. Riverfront Park is, I mean, that's the heart of Spokane. There's no, I mean, without Expo 74, and one of the coolest things they did, before the fair, all these rail lines cut through the city. Like 4 different railroads all kind of choked everything around the river. The fair organizers, led by King Cole, who was the fair organizer, he convinced all the railroads to go down to one single railroad line, which cleared up all this real estate and let them create
I don't know how they did that, because railroad was king.
Yeah, they were able to convince and pull off a lot of really smart civic political moves.
That's amazing. I love to hear that. But I want to talk about a few things that stood out. the garbage goat.
Garbage goat is still there. I mean, again, it's an environmental fair, right? It's this big goat sculpture. You can go up to it. It has some kind of a vacuum. There's an air compressor underground. If you hold your hand up to it, it sucks the garbage out of your hand.
Oh my gosh, I love it.
Fun thing to do is watch little kids do that because they wouldn't be harmed by it. It wasn't like it was going to suck them down into the goat's throat.
Right,
it was just
got
for the suck the garbage out.
That's
it's still
so
there
cute.
today, and a wonderful trademark from the fair.
Soviet Pavilion.
Deep of the Cold War, right? Early 1970s. We're still at this very intense situation with the Soviet Union that it would go on for the next 10 or 15 years or so. The organizers of the fair convinced the Soviets to come and put on a wonderful display of heralding all the triumphs of the great Soviet lifestyle, which of course would collapse a few years later, but it was the most popular pavilion at the fair. There's always a big line out in front of it.
That's amazing. So educating people, and that was, I think, had to do with the fair so much, right?
It's this whole notion of internationalism, cooperation, and sharing cultures that we kind of feels a little bit lost these days. And these sort of, maybe a little bit is understating it, but this notion that we can invite people from other countries here, share culturally, since we're all human beings, we all have music, we all have food. This is the height of that, and it's a little sad to think about that we don't do this so much in the United States.
I know, and maybe we need to. But speaking of music,
I like that.
Let's listen to that song again. So this song was written just for the fair, all about Spokane. And let's listen to it, actually. Let's just listen.
The old clock tower's watching over Expo, standing tall and looking very grand, watching all the new pavilions and the big displays, and friends here from many foreign lands. Spokane will show the world how we're cleaning up the land, pure water and fresh air from sea to sea. We're trying to make the land a better place for all to live. We'll teach the world about ecology.
We will teach the world about ecology, and that's Dale Miller. He's a guy from Clark Fork, Idaho, kind of not a majorly successful country singer, but a gold miner, a prospector, a construction worker. He owned a restaurant, and he put out a bunch of country records, and he ended up penning the theme song for the World's Fair, and it's kind of catchy. I think that's going to be an earworm.
I'm going to literally be thinking of you later when I'm like,
still tapping right now. I'm
teach the world about ecology.
Yeah, right here in Spokane.
I love
Spokane.
it. Okay, so overall, what would you say the World's Fair did for Spokane?
It showed civic leaders that they could get stuff done. They could go on to tackle other problems around, wastewater and stuff like that. And it created this incredible centerpiece of a city that prior to this was just kind of a railroad town. I mean, it's not to demean Spokane, it was a big city, but it was mainly about the railroads that went through there. Once you have the fair, it becomes a tourist destination. There's cultural amenities like that big pavilion, places where you can hold concerts, places where you can do sporting events, and Riverfront Park where people can gather and celebrate all that's great about one of the best cities in the state.
Do World's Fairs still happen?
They do. I know there's one in Shanghai not that long ago. We had one in 1986 in Vancouver, Expo 86. That was a pretty cool fair. That's the only one I've ever been to.
Why don't we do them anymore?
I think
we're all on our phones, or?
Well, they're different. I mean, they do hold them, but it's not the same kind of tourism draw that they would have been back in the 1970s.
No.
With Spokane, those 5.6 million people who came, the bulk of them drove there.
Yeah.
It wasn't like people flying in from all over.
Yeah.
The nature of tourism has changed a lot, but I think that spirit of international cooperation and sharing cultural stuff, there's some way to keep doing that and do that in a way that makes a big event. And this year in Spokane, they're celebrating the 50th anniversary. There's museum exhibits and special events and stuff. So great excuse to visit one of the cool cities in the state.
Well, I am going to head out there and check it out.
Dale Miller, bring your record along.
I'll have Dale in the car with me as I go. Singing it all the way.
We'll say it together. We'll teach the world about ecology.
Dun, dun, dun. Thank you, Felix, and thank you for spending time with us today. You can check our website for more content. You can always send us an email to share your thoughts. But most important, get out there and enjoy your new day. We'll see you next time.